When I discovered the amazing aroma at my surprise promotion party, an incredible transformation took place in my heart. The savory scent of slow-cooked barbecue enveloped me, a mouth-watering reminder of family cookouts, the warmth of laughter, and the love that can fill a backyard. As I stepped into the room bursting with brightly colored balloons and big grins, a wave of pride washed over me. Yet, as my gaze fell onto the certificate declaring my promotion, a sudden chill crept in. The words felt tainted, not earned, but handed to me through family connections. This revelation sank heavy in my chest. I had devoted endless hours to my students at Maple Grove High School, fighting hard against the noise of a system that often rewards charisma over sincere effort. Each day, I stepped into that classroom, helping students who needed guidance in a world that valued showmanship. But now, standing here among friends and family who believed they were honoring me, I felt an unexpected confusion gnawing at my insides. I wasn't a star teacher. I was one of the quieter ones, the diligent one, often overlooked precisely because I avoided the spotlight. "Jake, you deserve this!" A shout rang out, friendly faces all around me, but I shrank at their enthusiasm. Did I? With my mind racing and stomach sinking, I questioned the very nature of that recognition. Should I relish the moment they created for me, celebrating love and loyalty, or confront the uncomfortable truth that I was merely a puppet in a familial favor? Darkness pooled in the edges of my thoughts, threatening to drown the flickering light of joy. Suddenly, the environment felt stifling, too alive with expectations that I could no longer shoulder. The aroma wafted through the air again, thick with memory dinners with my parents where we shared dreams and poured our hearts out. Those moments taught me that hard work leads to treasure, not nepotism. They celebrated persistence and integrity, values I wanted to foster in my students, yet here I stood ready to accept a token of merit that didn't match my toil. Would I betray them, the students who looked to me as a compass in a world filled with privilege? Before I could collect my thoughts, I felt the room's gaze solidify, as if waiting for a signal from me, a response to their joy. My heart raced, not with thrill but with fear, the pressure to meet expectations overwhelming. I didn't want to risk their disappointment, but how could I let their cheers mask an untruth? Was I ready to speak against the tide of family loyalty? The very idea sparked a swell of anxiety, my muscles tensing as doubt clawed at my resolve. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As confetti rained down and their voices blended into an unintelligible hum of praise, I felt the room spin, thoughts colliding. Should I pull back the shimmering curtain of celebration to reveal the truth lurking beneath? What would my family think? My heart tightened, not with joy but a growing anguish. The stakes were soaring, and where safety had been, uncertainty now bubbled forth. Taking a deep breath, I realized that tonight wasn't just about accepting accolades. It was about standing tall, pushing against the facades of unfairness that stifled the voices of quiet achievers like me. The barbecue aroma, once reminding me of home, now filled my lungs with determination, inviting me to be bold. Shifting my stance, I scanned the room, electric with possibility and dread. Would I find the courage to redefine this moment, making it one of integrity over influence? The atmosphere thickened around me as the smiles remained fixed, oblivious to the storm swirling in my mind as I readied myself to speak. The moment of truth was upon me, and every heartbeat echoed with what lay ahead. I steadied myself, forcing my breath to slow, as if each inhale could anchor me firmly to the ground amidst the whirlpool of emotions. The light chatter and laughter around me faded, replaced by the rapid rhythm of my heart, echoing the turmoil brewing within. The buzz of celebration felt like a chasm widening between my truth and the perception of those I cared about. My family's pride transformed into a weight, and I couldn't ignore the voice in my head urging me to stand up, to stop pretending. It wasn't just a party. It was a defining moment, a crossroads where I had to choose between external applause and internal authenticity. Could I bear the thought of being celebrated for something I didn't wholly own? The thought twisted my stomach, pushing me toward a verdict I had to reach for myself. "Jake!" someone shouted again, pulling me from my internal storm. Their eyes sparkled with pride, a joy that felt genuine. But it was suffocating all the same. Their excitement, well-meaning as it was, felt misplaced, dangling off the edge of a truth I wasn't ready to reveal. Underneath the surface of those smiles lurked shadows of my self-doubt. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, I felt a spark ignite my thoughts. Maybe I could navigate this moment in a way that honored both me and the people I cared about. Instead of outright rejection, what if I reframed the narrative? I took a deep breath, pushing myself to focus. Perhaps I could acknowledge the promotion without waving away my hard work. I could stand tall without tearing down family loyalty. Instead of deflecting the praise, I could pivot, turning the moment into an opportunity to instill deeper values within my students and my community. The decision crystallized in my mind, offering clarity. I hadn't earned this title through sheer merit, yes, but that didn't diminish my dedication or my resilience. Reporting to a system riddled with flaws didn't absolve my responsibility to be a role model. I could use my voice to advocate for those like me, those quiet ones who worked hard but often went unrecognized. By embracing this new path, I could offer a perspective, a glimmer of hope for my students as I translated my personal conflict into an empowering lesson. As the crowd quieted, eyes fixated on me, the weight of their expectations pressed against my chest. I had the chance not just to claim my title, but to redefine what it meant. The room dimmed with anticipation, a shared electricity coursing through our collective breaths. "Thank you for this honor," I began, my voice steady yet firm. "But I must admit I didn't get here solely by my own hard work. I am grateful for the support from my family, and I understand the privilege that comes attached to that support. Yet I know too well that many deserving souls fade into the background, often unseen." The words poured out, revealing not just my conflict, but a commitment, a determination to transform the very essence of recognition into something meaningful and just. Yet, as I spoke, I noticed a flicker of discomfort ripple through the room. Some faces shifted, smiles wavered. The air thickened with tension as my truth collided with their expectations. Would this revelation fragment the love they had for me? The stakes rose, and as I caught my mother's eye, I saw a mixture of confusion and admiration that propelled me further. "The system isn't fair," I pressed, feeling emboldened as validation surged within me. "But I want to advocate for change, not just for myself, but for every student, every quiet achiever, who fights against the noise. We all deserve acknowledgement through genuine merit, and together, we can build a classroom that reflects that truth." The silence was deafening yet electric, and for the first time in my career, I felt liberated as my words carried weight. In that moment of honesty, I sensed something inside me awakening the desire not only to be recognized but to inspire real change. Now there was no going back. I had ignited a new path, one filled with risk yet illuminated by possibility. But I had one bridge yet to cross, the unexpected corner of my family loyalty that had just been rattled. As I took my seat, I glanced around the room, eyes darting to familiar faces, searching for signs of acceptance or rejection. What would become of those relationships I held dear? In the silence, I pondered their potential responses and how this night would alter not just my path, but theirs too. And somewhere, deeper than the clamor of celebration, a question brewed: had I gone too far? The atmosphere crackled with confusion as Jake took his seat, the weight of vulnerability settling like an unwelcome guest. His heart raced, each pulse echoing back to the anxious silence that had engulfed the room. He met the gaze of his mother, whose expression wavered between pride and disorientation. A shiver of doubt trickled down his spine. Had he truly crossed an unspoken line? As the chatter cautiously resumed around him, Jake wrestled with the enormity of his words. He had stepped too far, or had he not ventured far enough? The raucous celebration felt like a distant echo, an insular celebration that seemed to misunderstand his journey. He had always navigated through life's celebrations with a careful adherence to family pride, convinced that wearing those expectations like armor would shield him from judgment. Yet, tonight was different now. He grappled with a newfound realization that authenticity often bore a cost. The night dragged on, laughter continuing to pulse rhythmically through the hall, but Jake found himself disentangled from the merriment. Where others saw celebration, he sensed an impending reckoning. His mind flickered back to his students, the quiet achievers he had aimed to represent. Did the same shadows of self-doubt lurk in them as well? He reached for his phone, the screen illuminating his face in the dim light. Each notification felt like a reminder of expectations: Instagram posts showing snapshots of smiling faces, media tags of congratulatory messages. He scrolled through the comments, each one more effusive than the last. Yet their warmth felt thin, as if coating an underlying unease. What did they know of his truth? What would they think if they knew? A sudden thought ignited within him. If tonight had transformed into a pivotal chapter of his story, perhaps he could leverage this momentum to better articulate his purpose, not just to himself but to the world out there. Each message of congratulations could be a bridge to facilitate discussions about unrecognized potential, a dialogue to spark change. Determination surged within him. He needed to harness this recognition. It wasn't simply about the applause. It was about evolving the narrative of success. Could he rally his peers to embrace inclusivity in their own recognition of merit? It was time to turn vulnerability into advocacy. Almost instinctively, he drafted a message for his students through their online platform. He wrote about the evening, the conflicting emotions that coursed through him. He emphasized the importance of recognizing their own worth beyond mere grades, beyond what the system painted as success. He wanted them to know they were not alone in their struggle for acknowledgement. The send button hovered momentarily before he pressed it, feeling an immediate release mixed with trepidation. Before he could process the ramifications, his phone buzzed with responses that felt like an extension of himself: curious questions, confessions of shared struggles. He leaned into each reply, engaging with their raw honesty. In those moments, the room and its indecisiveness faded. He was forging a connection that felt more authentic than anything he had cultivated before. But as he poured into this dialogue, he couldn't shake the anxiety coiling in his gut. What were the costs of these revelations at home? He couldn't afford to lose his family's support, their respect. Suddenly, the anxiety within him morphed into resolve. Perhaps it was not just about protecting familial relationships but reconfiguring them through openness. They needed to see the man he was becoming, not just the son they cherished. As the night began to wind down, Jake felt a stirring in his chest, a mix of excitement and dread. This journey might fracture familial ties, but it also held the possibility of profound growth. He spun it in his mind, contemplating how to broach the subject at dinner the following day. With a deep breath, he looked over at his mother again. Her eyes darted elsewhere, reflecting a swirling tempest of emotions. Would she understand, or would he become a stranger in the shadow of his own words? Unsure of how he would converse with her about the emotional turmoil he had unleashed, his heart raced. The moment to face her, to lay his vulnerabilities bare, approached faster than he had anticipated. The stakes had never felt higher. Could honesty mend the fraying edges of loyalty? As that question hovered ominously in the air, Jake realized he had taken the first step into a brave new chapter of his life. But the path ahead loomed uncertain and daunting, one that directly confronted not only his identity, but his family's too. What awaited him at their dinner table? The following day felt almost surreal as Jake prepared for dinner. The remnants of the celebration still thrummed in his veins, but uncertainty clouded his mind. He stood in front of the mirror, scrutinizing his reflection, searching for the courage he hoped would manifest in both his demeanor and spoken words. Would he still be able to embody the person his family was proud of while revealing the layers of vulnerability he now understood to be essential? The aroma of his mother's signature lasagna wafted through the house, enveloping him in a bittersweet nostalgia. Each layer of her culinary masterpiece mirrored the layers he felt compelled to peel back tonight. Instead of seeking pleasure in its familiarity, however, he found himself anticipating the tension underneath the discordant notes struck amidst the comfort. Dinner was not just a meal. It was a stage for a confrontation he could neither postpone nor escape. As he set the table, the delicate clink of ceramic and silver seemed louder than it ever had before, emphasizing the weight of unsaid words. His mother floated into the dining room, her movements a well-rehearsed dance of domesticity, but a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face when she caught sight of him. It was as though she sensed the transformation that had begun to unfold. "Jake, are you all right? You seem different tonight," she asked, probing gently, her voice layered with maternal concern. He nodded, then hesitated, filling the space with silence that begged to be broken. How could he articulate what churned within him, the realization of dual identities, the beloved son and an emerging advocate for change? "I'm fine, just a lot on my mind," he managed. Was that even the truth? He felt like a disassembled puzzle, and she was trying to fit him together. Dinner progressed with pleasant distractions, laughter spilling forth like the homemade wine they cherished. But every joke felt like an insurmountable wall standing between him and the truth he had to share. Finally, after teasing banter about childhood stories, he felt the moment pressing against him like a weight unbearable. As the plates were cleared, he took a deep breath. "Mom, can we talk?" His voice dropped, grounding the atmosphere with seriousness. Her brows furrowed in immediate concern, but with a nod she set aside her own thoughts, focusing her attention solely on him. "Of course, honey. What's on your mind?" Jake felt the fear fraying at the edges of his resolve. "I've been thinking about what success means, not just as a student, but as a teacher, as a person. I've realized that I need to be honest about my journey, my struggles." He braced for impact, anticipating the ripples of her surprise and perhaps disappointment, but her expression remained neutral, watching silently as he continued. "Last night was pivotal for me. It made me question everything I thought I knew about myself, and about how I should measure my worth." A faint wrinkle crossed her brow, reflecting concern which quickly shifted to a deeper understanding. "Jake, I want you to feel proud of who you are. We all have our struggles," she admitted, her voice softening into a gentle embrace of words. "That's just it, Mom. I want to talk about struggles, about owning them. If I can show my students and even you why it's vital to be acknowledged for all of it, perhaps we can bridge a gap. I don't want to hide anymore." His resolve fortified with every word he spoke, encouragement igniting within him. But still, traces of fear loomed large, lingering in the air like smoke. Would she support his vision? Would she see him as more than just the success he had presented for so long? As she processed his words, a troubled look flickered across her face. "But what will your father say? It's not just about him." The urgency was palpable in Jake's voice. "It's about the truth I need to embrace. For my students. For us. I can't pretend any longer." The unknown stretched ominously before him, a chasm fraught with possibility. His mother's hesitation hung in the air, threatening to eclipse the potential growth burgeoning between them. The truth lay in the space where familial understanding could intertwine with his journey toward authenticity. As the moment crystallized, Jake realized this was not merely about revealing his struggles. It was about inviting his loved ones into a new narrative, one where vulnerability became a strength and compassion bridged personal divides. But in that brief silence, before she spoke, uncertainty gnawed at him. Could they embrace this unknown together? What awaited them on the other side of this conversation would define more than dinner. It would redefine their relationship and the man he was evolving into. The stillness between them stretched and twisted, suffocating yet charged with potential. Jake felt the weight of his truth pressing against his chest, every heartbeat a reminder of his urgency. The lasagna sat untouched, cooling slowly in the confident glow of candlelight as his mother searched his face for clues. Finally, she exhaled softly. "Jake, what do you mean by embracing your struggles?" It was the question he had longed for, yet it set off a cascade of anxiety. Here it was an opportunity to lay bare his truth, a leap into the unknown that felt simultaneously liberating and terrifying. "I mean that I don't want to pretend anymore. I've spent so long presenting a polished version of myself. It's time to show the whole picture. The confusion, the mistakes, everything that makes me human." He watched as her expression shifted, her fingers clasping the edge of the table for stability. I want to share this with my students too. They need to see that success isn't the absence of struggle, it's part of it. His mother's eyes narrowed slightly, a crease forming on her forehead as she absorbed his words. But what will that mean for you? For your career? Her concern ignited a flame of frustration within him. Mom, isn't that what I've always been chasing? A career based on expectations rather than my own truth? If I don't share this part of me, I'll never be the teacher I aspire to be. How can I guide them if I'm hiding who I really am? He felt a bitter taste of adrenaline spill over as he watched her contemplate his words. Every tick of the clock echoed in the silence, urgency pulsating just under the surface. Would she understand? Would she believe that revealing vulnerability could be a powerful teaching tool rather than a weakness? I want to create a space where my students feel safe enough to explore their own struggles, he continued, the conviction in his voice solidifying. We need to break this illusion that we have to have it all together. If I can't be honest, how can I expect them to be? Her gaze softened, though traces of worry still danced in her eyes. But vulnerability can be risky, Jake. What if they misinterpret that honesty as weakness? What if it affects your standing? Your father, Jake interrupted, the frustration morphing into urgency. I can't keep pretending it's easy. Every day is a challenge. I want to teach them that it's okay to admit that you don't have it all figured out. That it's okay to ask for help. For a moment, the room fell silent again, but this time the quiet felt more like fertile ground than a shroud of anxiety. In this silence, he realized he was offering something far more precious than words. He was presenting the possibility of growth, a chance to redefine not just himself, but how education could unfold in an environment driven by authenticity. Then, as if summoned by an unseen force, memories erupted within him, laughing with his students. Moments of clarity when the years of textbooks and assignments faded into the background, revealing the pure joy of learning. He needed to tap into that truth, shedding the need for validation, while empowering others to embrace theirs. He searched his mother's face for any sign of comprehension, pleading with her to understand his mission. Mom, it's more than being a good teacher. It's about seeing my students thrive, unburdened by the fear of failure. If I can demonstrate that embracing struggles catalyzes growth, then perhaps they'll feel brave enough to do the same. They'll learn to explore who they are, instead of hiding behind titles. A small smile began to bloom on her lips, accompanied by a spark of recognition. It wasn't full acceptance, not yet, but it felt like a step toward understanding, a crucial foundation on which their future conversations could be built. Okay, she finally said, her voice almost a whisper. I see where you're coming from. It does make sense, but there's so much at stake. Jake nodded, relieved yet cognizant of the hurdles still to come. I know. And I'm willing to take that risk if it means creating a more authentic environment. But just as a glimmer of hope flickered to life, doubt crept in. Was he prepared to face the backlash from his peers, the criticisms that would surely arise from those who held strict definitions of success? Before he could voice those thoughts, his mother spoke again. We can navigate this together, if you promise to keep communication open. The sigh of relief that escaped his lips might have marked the evening as a success, but Jake caught a glimpse of the chasm still yawning between them. The battle of tradition versus authenticity would not merely fade away with discussion. As the conversation carried on, filled with tentative plans and the shadows of uncertainty, he understood that the journey he was embarking upon was far from over. There would be uncomfortable truths to face, words to be chosen carefully, and perhaps even a confrontation with his father, a confrontation that loomed ominously on the horizon, threatening to derail everything he hoped to build. What awaited him beyond that looming confrontation could redefine not only his teaching career but also his family dynamics in ways he had yet to fully grasp. The anticipation of the confrontation with his father hung in the air like a storm cloud, pressing down on Jake as he lay awake that night. He replayed their previous interactions in his mind, each word a spike of anxiety piercing through his resolve. He could hear his father's voice, steeped in tradition, echoing the expectations that had been laid before him since childhood. The pressure to conform, to fit into the mold of what success looked like in his father's eyes, tightened around him like a noose. As dawn broke, illuminating his small apartment with a soft, golden light, Jake made himself a cup of coffee, hoping to find clarity in the ritual. Watching the steam rise, he questioned how he could support his students without losing himself in the process. Could he be a beacon of authenticity while standing on the precipice of disapproval from the person he held in such high regard? School loomed over him like a jagged mountain. The first day of class after his revelation was fast approaching, and he could feel the weight of expectation from both his students and himself. Would they sense the vulnerability he planned to unveil? Would it resonate, or would it fall flat? This exploration felt like a tightrope walk without a safety net, the uncertainty sending shivers down his spine. As he prepared his lessons, he found himself drawn to a quote he recalled from an inspirational speaker during a professional development seminar. Authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. The phrase pulsed with resonance against the framework of his nervous anticipation. What if he applied this philosophy? What if he embodied his truth in every lesson, every interaction? The first class arrived with a flood of faces, some eager, others apprehensive. As they settled into their seats, Jake felt a pang of vulnerability. Standing before them, he was not just a figure of authority, but a human being grappling with his own apprehensions. "Good morning, everyone," he began, his voice slightly trembling yet filled with resolve. "Today, we're going to talk about the importance of struggles in our journey as learners." He felt the classroom hold its breath, the tension twisting around him like a taut string, ready to snap. Taking a deep breath, he decided to share a recent personal experience, a moment where he had doubted his teaching abilities, when he felt overwhelmed by the pressures of expectation. As he spoke, he saw flickers of recognition in his students' eyes. They were hungry for honesty, hungry for a glimpse of the human behind the curriculum. Their reactions emboldened him, igniting a fierce determination within. Here was a chance not just to teach but to connect. After class, several students approached him, craving more. They expressed their own struggles, each story a window into their fears and hopes. Jake felt a gentle warmth spread through his chest, knowing that in sharing his own vulnerability, he had unlocked a door for them. They were starting to see the value of their own stories. But amidst these encouraging moments, the thought of his father's predictable disapproval loomed larger. Jake began to plan how he would broach the topic. How could he frame his choices in a way that might foster understanding, or at the very least, a productive dialogue? The discomfort of their impending conversation gnawed at him, daring him to retreat back into a safer role. He spent each evening crafting a mental script, rehearsing how he might defend his choices. It was exhausting, but necessary. He needed to arm himself with the right language to convey not just his intent but the profound impact he desired to make in education. Then, an empowering realization emerged. Every awkward interaction, every hesitation in conversation, was part of the fabric of growth he wanted to share with his students. He had come to a pivotal point. If he could face his father and articulate his journey, perhaps he could inspire his students to do the same. As the clock ticked down to their long-awaited confrontation, Jake's heart quickened. He awaited that moment when the weight of his truth would confront the facade of expectation. The time had come to face the man who embodied the very essence of his internal struggle. Would he find acceptance or rejection? Would authenticity win out against the traditions that had defined him for so long? The answer awaited just beyond the threshold of their conversation, ready to unfold into possibilities unknown. Jake fidgeted in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of his button-down shirt for what felt like the 100th time. His reflection stared back, a mix of determination and trepidation painted across his face. Today marked more than just the confrontation he dreaded with his father. It signified the emergence of what he wanted to become, a vocal proponent of authenticity, both for himself and his students. The early morning sunlight filtered into his apartment, casting crisp shadows that contrasted starkly with the turmoil within him. Jake took a moment to breathe deeply, recalling the raw connection he had formed with his students during that first class. The memory ignited a flicker of hope. If he could touch others through his honesty, perhaps he could inspire courage in himself. With an unsteady resolve, he packed his bag, making a list of points he wanted to address with his father. He wanted to explain his teaching philosophy, to articulate the importance of embracing one's vulnerabilities. The notion that personal fulfillment could coexist with respect for traditions was fundamental to his approach. He wished to challenge his father's rigid views without fracturing their relationship in the process. When he arrived at the restaurant where they would meet, Jake's heart raced. The familiar warmth of the place, a local family-owned eatery, was juxtaposed with the uncertainty of this impending dialogue. As he waited for his father to arrive, he inspected the decor, each photograph of happy families echoing the warmth he longed for in his relationship with his dad. His father entered, rugged and familiar, scanning the room until his eyes landed on Jake. The man walked over, exuding a tradition of authority that had always loomed over Jake's life. After a stiff hug, they settled into their seats, the silence thick like fog. As the waiter arrived, ordering the usual seemed automatic, a routine masking far greater tensions ahead. "Dad," Jake initiated carefully, the word almost feeling foreign on his tongue. "I wanted to talk about my teaching." The words rushed out, but he quickly swallowed the urgency building in his throat. "I want to share more of myself with my students. I believe my struggles can guide them in finding their own paths." A flicker of irritation sparked in his father's eyes, and the tension coiled tighter. "You're teaching them to share insecurities?" His father's tone was laced with disbelief, a challenge hanging in the air. "What would your students gain from that? Life is about resilience, not wallowing in vulnerabilities." Jake clenched his fists beneath the table, resisting the urge to retreat. "But Dad," he pressed, voice steadying as he carved deeper. "What if they need to see it's okay to have doubts? That we all struggle? Resilience isn't just about toughing it out, it's about recognizing when to ask for help." An uncomfortable silence stretched between them, punctuated only by the soft clinking of cutlery and distant laughter. Jake felt the weight of his father's gaze, measuring his son's resolve against the familiar backdrop of expectation. But as he drew upon memories of his students' faces, each one imbued with hope, punctured by fear, something shifted within him. This was not just about them. It was a reclamation of his right to choose a path that felt true. "I want to help them see it's not just about fulfilling roles expected of them," he elaborated. "That it's crucial to embrace who they are, flaws and all, much like I'm trying to do now." For a moment, his father faltered, eyes narrowing as if weighing the validity of Jake's words against years of entrenched beliefs. In that fleeting moment, hope danced on the edge of the conversation, waiting for his father to take the leap back into connection. But instead, his father's expression hardened. "You may think you're helping them, but you're only setting them up to fail." Each word struck like a hammer against Jake's resolve. The air shifted, tension replacing the fragile hope they had influenced. Jake narrowed his eyes, feeling the rush of indignation rise within him. This wasn't just about a philosophical disagreement. It was an attack on his very essence. Yet, amid the rush of anger, another deeper understanding simmered. He could choose to fortify his stance or crumble under the weight of tradition. One choice begged to kneel to his father's wishes. The other beckoned to embrace the truth he had begun to understand. Could he navigate the turbulence without backing down, without losing his voice? As the conversation reached an impasse, the waiter returned, placing their meals in front of them. Silence enveloped them once more, but within Jake, a newfound clarity emerged. He wouldn't simply accept his father's viewpoint, nor would he surrender his ideals. The stakes had risen. The next words spoken would either bridge the gap or widen the chasm. Jake took a deep breath, readying for what he believed might be the most significant moment of his life. Would he summon the courage to establish not just for himself, but for his students, a new legacy? The moment of truth hung tantalizingly close, the future of his self-identity poised to unfold with each tension-filled exchange. Jake's resolve crystallized inside him like tempered steel. He looked across the table at his father, the man who had shaped so much of his life with rigid expectations and unyielding principles. The silence was suffocating, yet it felt like an opening, an invitation to carve out a new path. "Dad," he said, his voice steady and firm, "what if this method isn't about setting them up to fail? What if it's a step towards fostering strength? The kind that comes from knowing oneself deeply, honestly? Each word he spoke felt like a small act of rebellion, a deliberate step into an unknown territory where vulnerability might not be seen as a liability but a strength. His father's brow furrowed, the lines of confusion translating into a mixture of concern and anger. You're naive if you think sharing weaknesses will make the next generation stronger. The world doesn't work like that. You sound like one of those motivational speakers, soft and sentimental. Frustration bubbled within Jake, and he drew on the memories of late nights spent discussing life over coffee with students who felt lost. Sentimentality isn't an absence of strength. I have seen my students thrive when they realize that everyone has a story filled with struggles, and they aren't alone in their battles. The moment hung in the air, charged with tension. A server passed by with plates of food, creating a brief interruption that felt almost comedic amidst the heavy atmosphere. Jake took a sip of water, using the brief distraction to ground himself. He realized this wasn't merely about convincing his father. It was a declaration of his own identity, one built on authenticity rather than expectations. Listen, he continued, what you consider a weakness can be a strength. Consider how many people feel cut off from conversation or support because they fear judgment. I'm teaching them to reach out to connect. If they can learn that it's okay to be imperfect, they're less likely to break under pressure. That stigma needs to change. As he spoke, he felt something shift not just in the conversation, but within himself. He didn't have to seek approval. This was his truth. The realization ignited a spark of passion, reviving him, yet his father's expression was a mask of frustration. You think you can redefine what it means to be strong? You're living in a fantasy world, Jake. In the real world, people get hurt when they show weakness. I'm not blind to that reality. Jake's voice remained calm, but inside, he felt the strain of the emotional pull. But maybe showing some humility, some vulnerability, can create a deeper connection. I assent that what you always wanted from me, strong relationships, friends I could rely on. For a fleeting second, Jake saw a flicker of uncertainty cross his father's face, but it was quickly masked by the resolve of traditionalism that had defined him for years. You're confusing truth and emotion. You think that your role as a teacher is to coddle students. Before Jake could interject, a thought flashed through his mind. He composed himself, refusing to let the tension dictate his reactions. This was a serious conversation, and it deserved clarity rather than escalation. I'm not coddling them, I'm empowering them. The conclusion hung like a storm cloud, darkening their table. In that charged silence, Jake wrestled with a multitude of emotions. Would this moment define his relationship with his father permanently? Would he be able to hold on to his ideals without pushing his father away for good? For the first time, he began to envision his future as a teacher, as a mentor who could instill resilience in his students through honesty and authenticity. It filled him with both dread and exhilaration. Maybe you could come see one of my classes, he offered, uncertain but willing to attempt reconciliation. I want you to understand where I'm coming from. His father's eyes narrowed slightly, processing both an invitation and a challenge. Jake held his breath, apprehension constraining his chest. Would the old man accept an offer that implied vulnerability, a step toward mutual understanding? As Jake awaited his father's response, he felt the weight of not just this single conversation pulling at the fabric of their relationship, but the future he was beginning to craft for himself. What would happen when their worlds finally clashed? Would they bridge the long-standing divide, or would they remain ensnared in the expectations that had menaced both of them for too long? The silence loomed again, and Jake could feel the boundaries shaping around the next moment. The pulse of uncertainty thrummed in his veins, his heart pounding with anticipation as he pondered the crucial importance of what would come next. What profound change lay in the balance? The silence stretched painfully as Jake held his breath, every second amplifying the gravity of the moment. His father, now visibly weighing the invitation, shifted in his seat, a gesture that lingered like an unspoken thought. What lay beneath that hardened exterior? For Jake, it was crucial to unearth the truth buried in the challenges of their relationship, not only for himself but also for the legacy he wished to leave with his students. "Fine," his father finally said, his voice clipped. "I'll attend." The response brought an unexpected rush of relief mixed with even deeper anxiety. Jake's mind raced with endless scenarios. What if his father interrupted? What if he dismissed his teaching style outright? Each possibility weighed heavily, but he kept reminding himself this was not just about demonstrating his methods. It was a crucial step towards mending the father-son rift that had defined so much of his life. As they finished their meal in relative silence, Jake felt the tightness in his chest begin to loosen. The confrontation may have changed the course of their conversation, but a new apprehension loomed. The impending visit to his classroom represented a profound shift, and Jake was both exhilarated and terrified by the prospect of his father witnessing his world. Over the next few days, the anticipation turned into restless energy. Jake meticulously prepared for his father's visit, redirecting his anxiety toward potential lesson plans that would engage and open the minds of his students. He imagined his classroom, student discussions bubbling with honest experiences, and moments of connection flourishing amidst shared vulnerabilities. However, as he devoted himself to this preparation, a gnawing thought gripped him. What if the methods he championed didn't resonate? What if he was wrong? The question spiraled into the depths of his mind, bringing back echoes of his father's harsh critiques. In those moments of doubt, Jake grappled with a fundamental realization: his father's voice, once the primary authority in his life, no longer dictated his self-worth or teaching philosophy. With each passing day, he solidified his approach. He framed his lessons around vulnerability, utilizing stories from his own life that exemplified the strength found in honesty. The students, who had spent so much time cloistered in their own insecurities, began to flourish under this new method. The breakthrough moments, the laughter, the tears, the realization of shared struggles charmed Jake with a warmth he had never anticipated. He was building resilience, not just within himself, but also in his students. When the day of his father's classroom visit arrived, Jake stood at the entrance, heart pounding like a drum. The classroom buzzed with activity, students animatedly sharing insights and reflections. He could see his father standing at the doorway, arms crossed tightly over his chest, an embodiment of apprehension. Would he recognize the powerful shift taking place? Jake swallowed hard, taking a deep breath as he stepped forward, gracing his father with a welcoming smile. The students, sensitive to the tension, quieted as he approached his father. This was more than a question of teaching. This was a bridge to understanding, a blending of two disparate worlds. "Thank you for coming," Jake said firmly, searching his father's eyes for a flicker of encouragement. But his father's gaze held uncertainty. "Let us see if your ideas really work," he replied, a challenge nestled in his words. Jake nodded, every nerve alight with determination, ready to confront his fears in front of his father and his class. The lesson unfolded amidst discussions about vulnerability and strength, and Jake felt an electric energy surge through the room. The students interacted, their voices weaving in and out of the fabric of the classroom, creating a vibrant tapestry of thought and emotion. For the first time, Jake grasped the profound influence he could wield not only over his students, but in defining his relationship with his father. Each moment of shared laughter and concentrated discussion further dismantled the walls between them and his father. As the class drew to a close, Jake turned to face his father, who wore an expression of cautious contemplation. The moment felt charged with potential, an opening he had craved. This was not just about the legitimacy of his teaching style. This was a confrontation of their shared past and a glimpse into a future where understanding might finally take root. However, as his father's lips parted with a tentative comment, doubt washed over Jake again. Was their bridge truly beginning to form, or would this encounter simply reinforce their divisions? What answers lay hidden beneath the low murmur of realization just waiting to be spoken? Jake observed his class with a mix of pride and nervous anticipation. The atmosphere crackled with energy as students shared their thoughts during a discussion on vulnerability and resilience, concepts he had fought hard to bring to the forefront of his teaching philosophy. Today was not just important for them, it was pivotal for him as well. His father sat in the back, arms crossed, eyes cautiously scrutinizing every word and gesture. "Jake, why is it important to discuss our weaknesses?" one student asked, prompting an avalanche of hands to shoot up around the room. He smiled at their eagerness, remembering the hesitation he once faced. "Because acknowledging our struggles is the first step toward growth. Weakness doesn't define us, it reveals areas we can fortify." The room hummed with responses, students eager to share their experiences. Jake felt a surge of confidence flow through him, a palpable connection igniting the room. As he took a moment to glance back at his father, an unexpected flicker of understanding appeared in his eyes, a softening around the harsh lines of skepticism. Jake pressed on, fueled by the realization that this was more than just a lesson, it was a testament to the transformative power of honesty. Here, in this space, he was not only creating a safe environment for his students, but forging a path for his own reconciliation with the past. The class came to a close, and as the final bell echoed through the corridors, Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Each smile and every nod of understanding from his students strengthened his belief in his mission, one built upon authenticity and open vulnerability. But the anticipation of engaging with his father loomed ominously ahead. "Dad," Jake said, taking a deep breath as he approached him, "I hope you saw how engaged the students were. They're hungry for connection." His father appeared thoughtful, but Jake couldn't decipher the tension vibrantly pulsating between them. "I want your feedback. I truly value what you think," Jake continued, hoping to pierce through the wall of tradition. "What I saw today was interesting," his father replied slowly, hesitating as if weighing each word. "But it raises questions. Are you teaching them to expect sympathy, or are you showing them how to tackle the real world?" Jake felt a pang of frustration, yet he was determined to stay grounded. "It's not about sympathy. It's about teaching them that vulnerability is part of strength. They need to know that it's okay to not have everything figured out. That's how they'll learn to seek help when it matters, instead of masking their struggles." A moment of silence stretched between them, thick with unresolved tension. "You think sharing insecurities empowers them?" his father challenged, skepticism still shadowing his face. "In my day, it was about toughening up. Maybe it's time we redefine what toughness means," Jake shot back, his conviction sharpening his voice. "Behind every yes, sir, and stiff upper lip are real people, real struggles. Power comes from authenticity." He could sense the shift in the air. His father's defenses were tremoring, just slightly, beneath the weight of his son's earnestness. Finally, after a drawn-out pause, his father nodded, albeit begrudgingly. "I'll give it a chance, but I want to see results. I'm not convinced yet." "Fair enough," Jake said, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. This moment, this exchange signified more than just a battle of principles. It heralded the beginning of an understanding. They were both learning to navigate the nuances of growth together, and for the first time, he sensed a crack forming in the armor of tradition that had defined their dynamic. As days turned into weeks, the rhythm of Jake's teaching style evolved. Students flourished under the environment he decultivated, expressing their fears and hopes in ways that he had only dreamed of before. Each lesson led to heartfelt discussions, and Jake felt himself thriving alongside them. Now, as Jake faced the culmination of his efforts, a pivotal school assembly was approaching. He had been chosen to deliver a keynote speech on embracing personal authenticity. His heart thrummed wildly. This was not just another lesson in the classroom. This was a moment to encapsulate everything he had fought for. Every student he had connected with motivated him to share his narrative, to empower others to embrace their journeys. He took the stage, the crowd's anticipation hanging heavy in the air. As he looked out over hundreds of faces, students, teachers, and even his father seated near the front, he felt a flood of determination rush through him. "Today, I want to talk about something we seldom acknowledge, our struggles," he began. "Each setback, every flaw, is a stepping stone toward growth." The impact of his words resonated throughout the room. Jake shared his story, the struggle for authenticity, the power of embracing vulnerability, and how each student had a unique journey worthy of recognition. The audience absorbed every word. It was transformative, deeply connecting the dots between personal battles and collective growth. At the speech's conclusion, applause erupted. Standing on that stage, Jake felt a surge of fulfillment wash over him. It was not just the recognition of his efforts, but the ownership of his own narrative unyieldingly shared amidst acceptance. He caught his father's eye across the room, and for the first time, he saw admiration breaking through the stoic exterior. After the applause faded, Jake stepped down, heart still racing from the mingling emotions. He walked straight to his father, whose demeanor had shifted. The old barriers were dissolving. "You did well, son," he said, his voice laced with something akin to pride. It was a significant revelation, a powerful moment that bridged the gap between generations, a firm grasp of understanding between a father and his son, each respecting the other's choice to redefine strength. In that instant, Jake realized he had transcended the expectations placed upon him. He had forged a new path, one that not only honored his own truth but inspired a new generation to do the same. His journey had come full circle, culminating in solid confidence and established competence that resonated beyond the classroom walls. "Let us talk more about this," his father urged, his voice inviting openness, a new chapter unfolding between them infused with the possibility of change. As they walked out together, Jake felt lightheaded with fulfillment. He had accomplished more than a mere transformation in career. He had transformed into a leader and advocate for authenticity and real change. The battle was not only for students' recognition and empowerment, but a genuine conversation with those he cherished most, a merging of identities that had been so contrasting only months earlier. He had demonstrated the power of vulnerable honesty and shared wisdom, and it would echo through generations yet to come. Now was the time for change, both in the classroom and within the sacred bonds of family. This was not just an end, but rather an open door beckoning toward a future where that same authenticity would cultivate the strength to conquer any challenge. You need to subscribe now to witness more incredible transformations and emotional journeys. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach others. Comment your reactions and theories about Jake's journey and what it means for you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this remarkable conclusion.